The clock on the wall showed 10:15 p.m. when Minseo Park pushed her cleaning cart through the empty hallways of Riverside University. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Most people had gone home hours ago. The mathematics building was dark except for a few emergency lights that cast long shadows on the walls. Minseo was 42 years old. She had been working as a night janitor at this university for almost 15 years. She wore a gray uniform with her name tag pinned to her chest. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked like any other cleaning worker you might pass without noticing. But Minseo had a secret. She stopped outside Lecture Hall 304. Through the glass window in the door, she could see the blackboard. It was covered with equations from today's calculus class. Her heart beat faster. This was her favorite part of the night. Minseo unlocked the door and pushed her cart inside. The room smelled like chalk dust and old books. Rows of empty desks faced the front where the blackboard stood. She walked slowly toward it, her eyes moving across the mathematical symbols and numbers. She smiled. It was a complex differential equation. The professor had been teaching the students about integration by parts. Minseo could see where some students had made mistakes in their notes on the sideboard. She could also see the correct solution path clearly in her mind. Her hand reached out and touched the chalk tray. For a moment, she wanted to pick up a piece of chalk and write. She wanted to show the elegant way to solve this problem. But she stopped herself. That was not her place. She was just the janitor. Minseo pulled out a small notebook from her cart. It was hidden under the cleaning supplies. The notebook was old and worn. The pages were filled with mathematical equations, theorems, and proofs. All written in her neat handwriting. All done late at night when no one was watching. She copied the equation from the board into her notebook. Later in the break room, she would work through it. She would find different ways to solve it. She would explore the mathematical beauty that most people never saw. This had been her life for 15 years. Cleaning by night, studying mathematics in the stolen moments between work, living a double life that no one knew about. But it had not always been this way. Minseo had been born in Seoul, South Korea. As a young girl, she had been special. Very special. While other children played games, Minseo solved puzzles. While others struggled with basic math, Minseo understood advanced concepts that even adults found difficult. By the time she was 12, she was competing in national mathematics competitions. She won medals. Teachers called her a prodigy. Her parents were proud. Everyone said she would become a great mathematician someday. Maybe even a professor at a top university. She remembered those days clearly. Standing on stage receiving a gold medal for first place in the Korean Mathematics Olympiad. She had been 15 years old. The world had seemed full of possibilities. Mathematics had been her language, her art, her joy. Then everything changed. When Minseo was 17, her father died suddenly. Heart attack. Her mother fell into deep depression. The family had no money saved. There were bills to pay. Minseo had a younger brother and sister who were still in school. Someone had to take care of everyone. Minseo dropped out of university after just 1 year. She took any job she could find. She sent money home. When her mother's condition got worse, Minseo made the hard decision to immigrate to America. Her aunt lived there and said there were more job opportunities. Maybe she could make enough money to help her family. She was 19 when she arrived in America with 2 suitcases and almost no English. The first years were very hard. She worked in restaurants, cleaned houses, did anything to earn money. She sent most of it back to Korea for her brother and sister's education. The years passed. Her brother finished university and became an engineer. Her sister became a teacher. Minseo was proud of them. She had sacrificed her dreams so they could achieve theirs. That was what family meant. By the time her siblings were independent, Minseo was in her late 20s. She had been away from mathematics for 10 years. She felt too old, too tired, too far behind to go back. Who would take her seriously? She had no degree, no credentials, no proof of what she could do. So she kept cleaning. She took the night shift at Riverside University because it paid a little more. And because it gave her access to something precious. The mathematics building. The blackboards. The books in the library. The equations that professors left behind. At night, after the students and professors went home, Minseo would study. She taught herself advanced calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, and topology. She read textbooks that professors left in their offices. She worked through problem sets that students had abandoned. She filled notebook after notebook with her own mathematical explorations. Sometimes she would discover elegant solutions to problems. Sometimes she would find mistakes in the textbook answers. Sometimes she would create her own problems just for the joy of solving them. But she never told anyone. Who would believe her? She was just a janitor. People saw her uniform and her mop bucket. They did not see her mind. They did not see the thousands of hours she had spent teaching herself advanced mathematics. They did not see the genius that had been buried under years of necessity and survival. Mincio finished copying the equation and put her notebook away. She began to clean the lecture hall. She emptied trash cans, wiped down desks, and swept the floor. Her movements were automatic. She had done this same work thousands of times. As she cleaned, she thought about the equation. There were 3 different approaches to solving it. The professor had used the standard method, but there was a more creative way using substitution. She would explore that later. The clock showed 11:30 p.m. when she finished Hall 304. She moved to the next room, then the next. The night stretched ahead of her. She would clean until 6 a.m. as always. Then she would go home to her small apartment, sleep for a few hours, and return tomorrow night. It was almost 2 a.m. when Mincio reached the faculty break room. She was taking her 15-minute break, sitting alone with a cup of instant coffee. Her notebook was open in front of her. She was working through the differential equation from Hall 304. The door suddenly opened. Mincio quickly covered her notebook with a cleaning rag. Professor Richard Ashford walked in. He was the head of the mathematics department. 55 years old with gray hair and expensive suits. He had a reputation. Brilliant mathematician. Published author. Also arrogant and mean. Ashford did not look at Mincio. To him she was invisible. Just part of the furniture. He made himself coffee and stood by the window talking on his phone. "The final exam is ready," he said to whoever was on the other end. "I have created a problem that will destroy them. My best students will struggle. Most will not even know where to begin," he laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "That is the point, David. I want to show these young people that mathematics is not easy, that they are not as smart as they think they are. The last problem is particularly beautiful. I have been working on it for months. It will separate the truly gifted from the merely hardworking." Mincio listened while pretending to clean the counter. She kept her face neutral. Ashford continued talking. No one will solve it during the exam. I expect blank pages and tears. Then I will show them the solution. I will show them what real mathematical thinking looks like. It will be a valuable lesson in humility." He finished his coffee and left without ever acknowledging Mincio's presence. Mincio sat alone in the break room. She looked at her notebook, at the equations she had been working on. She thought about Professor Ashford's words, about his pride, about his desire to humiliate students. She had met many professors like him over the years, men who believed that intelligence was a competition, that making others feel small made them feel big, men who never imagined that the janitor cleaning their offices might understand their work better than they did. Mincio closed her notebook and returned to work. She pushed her cart down the empty hallway. The building was quiet except for the sound of her footsteps and the hum of fluorescent lights. Somewhere in the darkness, equations waited to be solved. Problems waited to be understood. Mathematical beauty waited to be discovered. Mincio would find it all as she did every night. Alone in the shadows where no one could see, where no one would ever know, but that was about to change. The morning came too quickly. Mincio had only slept 3 hours when her phone rang. It was her supervisor, Linda, from the cleaning company. "Mincio, I need you to come in early today. There's been a scheduling problem. We need someone to clean the large exam hall while the students are taking their test. Can you do it?" Mincio rubbed her tired eyes. "During the exam? Will that not disturb the students? The professor says it's fine as long as you're quiet. The regular day staff called in sick. You just need to empty trash and do basic cleaning. Quick and quiet. Can you be there by 9 a.m.? Mincio agreed. She had no choice. She needed this job. She got dressed in her gray uniform and took the bus to campus. The morning sun was bright. Students walked past her carrying backpacks and coffee cups. They were stressed about exams. Some were reviewing notes as they walked. Mincio arrived at the mathematics building at 8:45 a.m. This was strange for her. She never saw this building during the day. It looked different with sunlight coming through the windows. It felt different with people everywhere. She found Linda near the exam hall. The large room could hold 200 students, but today only 80 would be taking Professor Ashford's advanced calculus final exam. Just stay in the back, Linda instructed. Be quiet. Empty the trash cans. Wipe the back tables if they're dirty. Then leave. The exam is 3 hours long, but you should be done in 20 minutes. Minseo nodded. She pushed her cart into the exam hall through the back door. Students were already sitting at desks. They had pencils, calculators, and water bottles. Their faces showed nervousness and fear. At the front of the room stood Professor Ashford. He wore an expensive navy blue suit. His gray hair was perfectly combed. He was writing the final problem on the blackboard. Even from the back of the room, Minseo could see it was complex. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a differential equation, but not an ordinary one. It involved partial derivatives, boundary conditions, and multiple variables. She recognized it immediately as a variation of a famous problem in mathematical physics. Ashford finished writing and turned to face the students. You have 3 hours, he announced. The first 3 problems are worth 20 points each. The final problem is worth 40 points. I suggest you spend most of your time on problem 4. It is where I will truly see who understands calculus and who has merely memorized formulas. He smiled, but it was not a warm smile. Problem 4 is particularly interesting. I created it myself. It requires creative thinking and deep understanding. Do not expect it to be easy. Some of you may not know where to begin. That is acceptable. Struggle is part of learning. The students looked terrified. Some stared at the board with wide eyes. Others had already put their heads down and started writing, working on the easier problems first. Ashford looked at his watch. You may begin, now. The room filled with the sound of pencils on paper. Minseo started her work quietly. She pushed her cart along the back wall. She emptied trash cans that were barely full. She tried to be invisible as always, but her eyes kept going back to the blackboard, to problem 4, to the equation that Ashford was so proud of. She could see the solution. It was there in her mind, clear as daylight. The equation looked intimidating, but it had a beautiful structure. If you recognized the pattern, if you made the right substitution early, the whole thing would simplify. What looked like 40 steps could be done in fewer than 25. Minseo moved closer to the side of the room, still emptying trash. She could see the students struggling. One girl had her head in her hands. A boy in the 3rd row had written something, erased it, written something else, and erased that too. Another student had left problem 4 completely blank and moved on to check his earlier answers. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Minseo had finished her cleaning work, but she stood quietly in the back corner. She told herself she should leave. This was not her business, but something kept her there. Maybe it was the equation. Maybe it was watching these young people suffer over a problem that their professor had designed specifically to defeat them. Ashford walked slowly between the rows of desks. He looked at the students' papers as he passed. Sometimes he smiled to himself. He seemed pleased with their struggle. Minseo felt anger rising in her chest. This was not teaching. This was cruelty. Mathematics should not be used as a weapon to make people feel stupid. It should be shared, explored, celebrated. She looked at the problem again. Her hand moved unconsciously toward her cart. Under the cleaning supplies, she had a small piece of chalk. Sometimes she used it to mark which rooms she had finished cleaning. Her fingers touched the chalk. She looked at the blackboard. She looked at the students. She looked at Ashford, who was now standing at the front with his arms crossed. Watching his students fail, Minseo's hand was halfway out of her cart, chalk between her fingers when it happened. Excuse me. The voice was loud in the quiet room. It was Ashford's voice. Minseo's heart jumped. She quickly pulled her hand back and looked up. Ashford was staring directly at her. His eyes were cold. What are you doing? He asked. Every student looked up. 80 pairs of eyes turned to the back of the room. Minseo felt her face grow hot. I am cleaning, sir, she said quietly. You are staring at the blackboard, Ashford said. His voice was sharp. You have been standing there for 5 minutes staring at my exam problem. I apologize, sir. I will leave now. Minseo reached for her cart. No, wait. Ashford walked toward her. A cruel smile appeared on his face. I am curious. You seem very interested in this differential equation. Perhaps you think you understand it? The room was completely silent. Minseo could hear her own heartbeat. I do not think anything, sir. I apologize for the disturbance. Ashford came closer. He was standing just a few feet away now. He looked at her name tag. Minseo Park, he read aloud. Tell me, Ms. Park, do you have an opinion about this problem? You have been staring at it quite intently. Minseo said nothing. She kept her eyes down. She knew what was happening. She had seen this before. Someone with power finding someone without power and deciding to entertain themselves. Perhaps our janitor thinks she can solve what my best students cannot. Ashford said loudly. He turned to address the class. What do you think, everyone? Should we give Ms. Park a chance? Should we let her show us how it is done? A few students laughed nervously. Most looked uncomfortable. One young man in the front row who had kind eyes looked angry on Minseo's behalf. Ashford continued. You see, this is a perfect teaching moment. This is a problem that requires years of advanced mathematical training, years of study, dedication, intelligence. It is not something that just anyone can understand by looking at it. He gestured at Minseo. Ms. Park, I am sure you are very good at your job. Cleaning is important work, but there is a difference between people who think and people who clean. There is a difference between those who create knowledge and those who maintain the spaces where knowledge is created. Minseo felt like she had been slapped. Her hands clenched into fists. Her whole body was shaking, but she forced herself to stay calm, to stay quiet. Some people are meant to study in universities, Ashford went on. Others are meant to serve those who study. This is simply how the world works. Each person finds their appropriate level. He looked directly at Minseo again. I am sure you are perfectly happy with your life, Ms. Park. There is no shame in honest work, but let us not pretend that everyone has the capacity for advanced mathematics. That would be foolish. The room was dead silent. Minseo could feel tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not cry in front of these people. She would not give Ashford that satisfaction. You may go now, Ashford said, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. And please do not disturb my students during exams again. Minseo pushed her cart toward the door. Her vision was blurred. Her hands shook. The wheels of the cart squeaked loudly in the quiet room. It felt like the longest walk of her life. Just before she reached the door, she heard a voice. Professor Ashford. That was uncalled for. Minseo turned. The young man with kind eyes had stood up. He was tall, with black hair and glasses. He looked angry. Sit down, Mr. Kim, Ashford said sharply. No, sir. That was cruel. She was just doing her job. You humiliated her in front of everyone for no reason. Mr. Kim, if you do not sit down immediately, I will mark your exam as incomplete. The student, Mr. Kim, hesitated. Then slowly he sat down. But he continued to stare at Ashford with obvious disapproval. Minseo left the room. The door closed behind her. She stood in the empty hallway, breathing hard. Her whole body was shaking now. Tears finally fell down her cheeks. She had been invisible for 15 years. She had accepted that. She had made peace with it. But today Ashford had not just ignored her. He had seen her and decided to crush her. He had used her as an example, as a lesson, as a way to show his students where they could have ended up if they were not smart enough. Minseo pushed her cart to the women's bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and cried. She cried for the girl she used to be. The girl who won gold medals and solved impossible problems. The girl who had dreams of becoming a great mathematician. She cried for all the years she had spent in shadows, for all the nights she had studied alone, for all the brilliant ideas she had that no one would ever see. After 10 minutes, she dried her eyes. She washed her face. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. Something had changed inside her. The anger was still there, burning hot. But there was something else, too. A decision, a choice. For 15 years she had hidden. She had accepted her place. She had stayed silent. But not anymore. Minseo looked at her reflection and made a promise to herself. She did not know exactly what she would do yet. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Professor Richard Ashford had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Tonight, when she came back to clean that exam hall, she would show him something. She would show him what happens when you underestimate someone, when you judge them by their uniform instead of their mind. Tonight, she would pick up that chalk. Tonight, she would solve his impossible problem, and she would do it in a way that would make him question everything he thought he knew. Minseo spent the rest of the day in her small apartment. She could not sleep. She could not eat. She kept replaying the morning in her mind. Ashford's words, the students' laughter, the shame that had burned through her body. But more than that, she kept seeing the equation on the blackboard. It called to her. It challenged her. It demanded to be solved. She looked at the clock. 6 p.m. In 4 hours, her shift would begin. In 4 hours, she would return to that building, to that exam hall, to that blackboard. Mincio opened her closet and pulled out a box from the top shelf. Inside were all her notebooks from the past 15 years. Dozens of them, filled with mathematical work that no one had ever seen. Proofs and solutions and original problems. The secret life of her mind hidden away. She opened one notebook from 3 years ago. She had been studying topology then. She had worked through an entire graduate-level textbook on her own. She had solved every problem, often finding more elegant solutions than the ones in the answer key. In another notebook, she found her work on differential equations. She had spent 6 months exploring different solution methods. She had discovered some patterns that she had never seen mentioned in any textbook. Maybe they were known to experts. Maybe they were not. She had no way to find out. Mincio closed the notebooks and put them back in the box. She knew what she could do. She had always known. But knowing privately and proving publicly were two different things. If she solved Ashford's problem tonight, there would be no taking it back. People would ask questions. Her secret would be exposed. Her quiet life would be over. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Ashford's face. She heard his words. People who think and people who clean. Each person finds their appropriate level. She opened her eyes. Her decision was made. At 9:45 p.m., Mincio walked into the mathematics building. She wore her gray uniform. She pushed her cleaning cart. To anyone watching, she looked exactly the same as every other night. But inside, her heart was racing. She went to the supply closet first. She got fresh trash bags, cleaning solution, paper towels. Then she moved through the building, cleaning the smaller rooms first. She worked slowly. She waited for the building to empty completely. By 11:30 p.m., she was alone. The mathematics building was silent and dark except for the emergency lights. Most of campus was asleep. Even the library had closed at 11. Mincio stood outside the exam hall. Her hand was on the door handle. This was the moment. She could still turn back. She could clean this room like any other room and leave the blackboard untouched. But she did not turn back. She pushed the door open. The exam hall was dark. Mincio turned on the lights. The fluorescent bulbs flickered and then glowed. The room looked exactly as it had this morning. Rows of empty desks. And at the front, the blackboard with Ashford's equation still written on it. Mincio walked slowly down the center aisle. Her footsteps echoed. She reached the front of the room and stood before the blackboard. The equation was still there, mocking her, challenging her. Waiting for her, she read it carefully. It was a partial differential equation with boundary conditions, the kind of problem that appears in physics in the study of heat flow and wave motion. Ashford had made it deliberately complicated. He had added extra terms that looked important but were actually distractions. He had structured it in a way that would lead most students down the wrong path. Mincio could see through all of it. She could see the true structure hiding beneath the complicated exterior. It was like looking at a sculpture covered in mud and being able to see the beautiful form underneath. She picked up a piece of chalk. Her hand was shaking. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "You have done harder problems than this. You know you have." But the shaking would not stop. It was not the mathematics that scared her. It was everything else. Once she wrote on this board, everything would change. Mincio closed her eyes. She thought about her younger self. The 15-year-old girl standing on a stage in Seoul holding a gold medal. That girl had been fearless. That girl had believed she could do anything. "This is for you," Mincio whispered to that memory. "This is for the mathematician you should have been." She opened her eyes. The shaking stopped. Her hand was steady now. Mincio began to write. She did not use Ashford's expected method. She knew how he would solve this problem. She had seen his textbooks, read his papers. He favored brute force approaches. Lots of steps. Lots of algebraic manipulation, showing off technical skill but missing the deeper elegance. Instead, Mincio used a different approach. She started with a clever substitution that she had read about in an advanced topology paper. It was not standard. Most calculus students would never see it. but it transformed the ugly equation into something beautiful. Her chalk moved across the board. She wrote clearly, neatly. Each step followed logically from the one before. She included brief notes explaining her reasoning. Not because anyone had asked for them, but because this is how mathematics should be done. With clarity, with beauty, with respect for anyone who might try to understand. The substitution revealed a hidden symmetry in the equation. Once you saw this symmetry, the problem became much simpler. Terms canceled. Variables separated. What had looked like a nightmare became almost elementary. Min-seo worked steadily. She filled one board, then moved to the second board next to it. She lost track of time. There was only the mathematics. Only the pure joy of solving, of discovering, of revealing truth. After 45 minutes, she stepped back. It was done. The solution covered 2 blackboards. It was complete. It was correct. And it was beautiful. Most importantly, it was different from what Ashford would expect. His solution would take 40 or 50 steps. Hers took 23. His solution would be technically correct but heavy and inelegant. Hers revealed the true mathematical structure of the problem. Min-seo stared at her work. For a moment she felt pure happiness. This was who she really was. This was what she was meant to do. Not hiding in shadows. Not pretending to be less than she was. Just mathematics. Pure and true and beautiful. Then the fear returned. What had she done? Ashford would see this tomorrow. He would know someone had solved his precious problem. He would be furious. There would be an investigation. Security cameras would be checked. Min-seo looked at the boards. She could erase everything right now. She could make this whole night disappear. No one would ever know. Her hand reached for the eraser. But then she stopped. No, she was tired of hiding. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being silent. If Ashford wanted to mock her for being a janitor, then let him see what this janitor could do. Min-seo picked up the chalk one more time. At the bottom of the solution in the corner of the second board, she wrote her name. In Korean characters, Park Min-seo, Park Min-seo. She put down the chalk and stepped back. Her signature stood there clearly. No hiding, no anonymity. She was claiming this work. She was saying, I did this. I am capable of this. See me. Min-seo turned off the lights and left the exam hall. She continued her shift, cleaning the rest of the building. But everything felt different now. She felt different. Lighter somehow, as if she had been carrying a heavy weight for 15 years and had finally set it down. She did not know what would happen tomorrow. But for tonight she had done something true. She had let herself be seen, really seen, for the first time in years. It was almost 1 a.m. when Min-seo heard a sound behind her. She was cleaning the third-floor hallway. She turned and saw someone coming up the stairs. It was a young man. A student. He looked familiar. Min-seo realized it was Mr. Kim, the student who had defended her this morning in the exam hall. The one with kind eyes and glasses. Hello, he said, looking surprised to see her. I did not expect anyone to be here this late. I work the night shift, Min-seo explained. Why are you here? Ji-woo Kim held up his phone. I left my calculator in the exam hall this morning. I need it for another test tomorrow. I got special permission to come get it. He looked uncomfortable. I wanted to apologize for this morning. For what Professor Ashford said to you. That was wrong. Very wrong. Min-seo felt warmth in her chest. Thank you. You did not have to stand up for me. You could have gotten in trouble. Someone had to say something, Ji-woo said firmly. Ashford is brilliant, but he is also cruel. Everyone knows it. We just never had the courage to confront him before. Ji-woo walked toward the exam hall. Min-seo's heart suddenly jumped. The boards. Her solution. She had forgotten. Wait, she called out. But Ji-woo had already opened the door and turned on the lights. Min-seo stood frozen in the hallway. She heard Ji-woo's footsteps stop. Then silence. After a long moment, Ji-woo came back to the doorway. His face was pale. His eyes were wide. Did you do that? He whispered. Min-seo could not speak. She just nodded. Ji-woo looked at her, then back at the boards, then at her again. That is problem 4 from the exam. The impossible one. Yes, Min-seo said quietly. You solved it. Yes. Ji-woo walked back into the exam hall. Min-seo followed him. They both stood looking at the boards filled with her work. I have been studying mathematics for 4 years, Ji-woo said slowly. I am graduating this spring. I got an A in advanced calculus, but I could not solve this problem. None of us could. We left it blank or wrote nonsense hoping for partial credit. He moved closer to the boards, reading her work. But this is not just correct. This is elegant. This is beautiful. Where did you learn to solve problems like this? Mincio took a deep breath. I teach myself. At night, while I clean, I have been studying mathematics for many years. Jiwoo turned to look at her. How many years? Since I was a child, but seriously on my own for the past 15 years. 15 years, Jiwoo repeated. He looked stunned. And you work as a janitor? Yes, but why? With this kind of ability, you could be a professor. A researcher. You could be teaching us, Minseo smiled sadly. Life is complicated. Sometimes we do not get to choose our path. Jiwoo pulled out his phone. I need to take pictures of this. Do you mind? Minseo hesitated. Why? Because this is remarkable. Because Ashford needs to see that his impossible problem was solved. Because... Jiwoo paused. Because people need to know that you can do this. I do not want trouble, Minseo said. This is not trouble. This is truth. Jiwoo started taking photos of both blackboards, making sure to capture every step of the solution. He also took a photo of her signature in Korean. When he finished, he looked at Minseo with respect. What will happen tomorrow when Ashford sees this? I do not know, Minseo admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe he will just erase it and pretend it never happened. Or maybe, Jiwoo said thoughtfully, maybe everything will change. They stood together in the exam hall. The clock on the wall showed 1:15 a.m. Outside, the campus was dark and sleeping. But in this room, something important had happened. A truth had been written on a blackboard. A secret had been revealed. Minseo did not know what tomorrow would bring. Fear and hope mixed together in her chest. But one thing was certain. She had picked up the chalk. She had solved the impossible problem. She had written her name for everyone to see. There was no going back now. Professor Richard Ashford arrived at his office at 7:30 a.m. He always came early. He liked the quiet morning hours when the building was still mostly empty. It gave him time to prepare his lectures without interruption. This morning he was looking forward to his advanced calculus class. Today he would show the students the solution to problem 4 from yesterday's exam. He would demonstrate the proper method step by step. He would show them where they had gone wrong. It would be a valuable lesson in humility and precision. Ashford made himself coffee in the faculty break room. 2 other professors were there, but he did not talk to them. He was not interested in small talk. He had work to do. At 8:15 a.m. he walked toward the exam hall. His lecture was at 9 a.m., but he wanted to prepare the board ahead of time. The solution was complex. It would take him at least 30 minutes to write it all out clearly. He pushed open the door to the exam hall. The lights were already on. Strange. The building manager usually did not open this room until 8:30. Ashford walked down the aisle toward the front. He was looking down at his notes, reviewing the first steps of his solution. He reached the front of the room and looked up at the blackboard. He stopped walking. His briefcase fell from his hand and hit the floor with a loud bang. The blackboards were covered with writing. Someone had solved problem 4. For a moment, Ashford's brain could not process what he was seeing. This was not possible. He had left those boards blank last night. The exam had ended at noon yesterday. The cleaning staff was not supposed to write on the boards. Students were not allowed in this room without permission. He moved closer, his heart pounding. His eyes scanned the boards quickly, then more slowly. Someone had not just attempted the problem. They had solved it completely. And correctly. Ashford felt anger rising in his chest. This was vandalism. This was disrespectful. Who would dare to write on his blackboards without permission? But then his professional instincts took over. Despite his anger, he could not help reading the solution carefully. And as he read, his anger mixed with confusion, then with shock. This was not the solution he had planned to teach. This was completely different. The unknown solver had used a substitution that Ashford had not considered. It was clever. Very clever. It transformed the problem in a way that revealed a hidden structure. The rest of the solution flowed naturally from that insight. Ashford counted the steps. 23. His own solution required 47 steps. This solution was almost half the length. And yet it was complete. Every step was justified. Every calculation was correct. More than that, it was elegant. Mathematical beauty was subjective, but Ashford had been in this field for 30 years. He knew elegance when he saw it. This solution had it. His solution, he had to admit, did not. He stared at the boards for a long time. Who could have done this? It had to be a graduate student, or maybe one of the other professors playing a joke on him. Yes, that must be it. Someone was trying to show him up. To embarrass him, Ashford noticed the signature at the bottom of the second board. Korean characters. He could not read them. He pulled out his phone and took a photo of the signature. He used a translation app. The character spelled out, Park Min-seo, Park Min-seo. The name was vaguely familiar, but he could not place it. Was she a graduate student? He did not think so. He knew all the graduate students in the mathematics department. None of them were named Park Min-seo. He heard footsteps behind him. Ashford turned to see Professor David Chen entering the room. David taught probability theory. He was Ashford's closest colleague, though Ashford did not really have friends. "Good morning, Richard," David said. Then he saw the blackboards. "Oh, I thought you were going to present your solution this morning." "Did you write it out already?" "That is not my solution," Ashford said stiffly. David moved closer. He was quiet for a moment, reading the work. Then he whistled softly. "This is brilliant." "Whose work is this?" "I do not know. Someone wrote it without permission, probably last night." David continued reading. "The substitution here. I have never seen this applied to this type of problem before. This is genuinely creative work." He looked at Ashford. "This is better than your solution, is it not?" Ashford's jaw tightened. Different does not mean better. "Come on, Richard. This is half the length and twice as elegant. You have to admit it." David pointed at several steps. "Look at how the symmetry emerges here. Look at how naturally the variables separate. This is masterful." Other professors began arriving. Word spread quickly. By 8:45 a.m., 6 faculty members were crowded in the exam hall examining the mystery solution. "Who is Park Min-seo?" Professor Sarah Mitchell asked. She was the dean of the mathematics department, a small woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "I do not know," Ashford admitted. "The name is not familiar." "Check the student database," someone suggested. Ashford pulled out his laptop and connected to the university system. He searched for Park Min-seo. No results. Not in the graduate program. Not in the undergraduate program. Not listed as a visiting scholar or researcher. "Maybe it is a fake name," David suggested. "Maybe someone is pranking you." But Dr. Mitchell was looking at the solution very carefully. "This is not a prank. This is serious mathematical work. Someone very talented wrote this." "I want to know who," Ashford said. His voice was hard. "I want to know who entered this room without permission and defaced university property." "Defaced?" Dr. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "Richard, this is hardly defacement. This is a remarkable solution to your exam problem." "It is still unauthorized," Ashford insisted. "I will check the security footage." He left the exam hall and went to the campus security office. The security guards knew him. He often requested footage when students cheated or when there were disputes about exam conditions. "I need to see footage from the exam hall in the mathematics building," Ashford said. From last night between 6 p.m. and midnight, the guard pulled up the footage. They watched on fast forward. The exam hall was empty until 11:34 p.m. Then a figure appeared, pushing a cleaning cart. "Stop. Play normal speed," Ashford commanded. They watched as a woman in a gray cleaning uniform entered the room. She turned on the lights. She walked to the front. She stood before the blackboards for a moment. Then she picked up chalk and began to write. The security footage showed her working for 45 minutes straight, writing steadily, occasionally stepping back to review her work, then writing more. At 12:19 a.m., she signed her name and left. "Go back," Ashford said. "Show me her face." The guard replayed the footage. When the woman turned toward the camera, they paused the image. Ashford stared at the screen. He knew that face. He had seen her yesterday morning. He had mocked her in front of his students, the janitor, the cleaning woman who had been staring at his exam problem. "That is impossible," Ashford said aloud. "What is impossible?" the security guard asked. "Nothing. I need a copy of this footage." Ashford returned to the exam hall with his laptop. Dr. Mitchell and several other professors were still there. Students had started arriving for the 9 a.m. class and were looking at the boards with amazement. "I found who did it," Ashford announced. He played the security footage on his laptop. The professors watched in silence. When it finished, Dr. Mitchell spoke first. That is Minseo Park from the cleaning staff. I know her. She has worked here for many years. That is impossible, Ashford repeated. She is a janitor. She has no education. She barely speaks English. There is no way she could solve this problem. The evidence is right in front of you, David said quietly. She wrote it. The camera does not lie. Then she copied it from somewhere, Ashford insisted. His voice was rising. She found the solution online or in a book. She cheated somehow. Richard, Dr. Mitchell's voice was calm but firm. I have known Minseo for over 10 years. She is an honest woman, and even if she could find a solution somewhere, how would she know where to look? How would she even understand what she was looking at? I do not know, Ashford said, but I know that janitors do not solve advanced calculus problems. It is absurd. She must have had help. Maybe a student did this and she just copied it onto the board. At that moment, Ji-woo Kim entered the exam hall. He was early for class. He saw all the professors gathered around the blackboards. He saw the security footage on Ashford's laptop. Excuse me, Ji-woo said. Everyone turned to look at him. I can confirm that Ms. Park did this herself. I saw her last night around 1 a.m. I came back to get my calculator. She had already finished the solution. I talked to her about it. Ashford spun to face him. You talked to her? Yes, sir. She told me she has been teaching herself mathematics for 15 years, while working as a janitor. That is ridiculous, Ashford said. Is it? Ji-woo's voice was respectful but firm. Yesterday morning, you humiliated her in front of the entire class. You said she could not possibly understand mathematics, that some people think and some people clean. But you were wrong, Professor Ashford. She understands mathematics better than most of us. The room was very quiet. Other students had arrived now. They were listening to every word. Dr. Mitchell looked at Ashford. Is this true? Did you humiliate Ms. Park during the exam yesterday? Ashford's face was red. I made a comment. She was distracting the students. She was staring at the board instead of doing her job. You made more than a comment, Ji-woo said. Several other students nodded in agreement. You mocked her. You said she was not capable of understanding. You said people find their appropriate level in life. Dr. Mitchell's expression was serious now. Richard, we will discuss your conduct later. Right now I want to talk to Ms. Park. Where can we find her? She works the night shift, one of the security guards said. She is usually here from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. She probably went home hours ago. Get her contact information, Dr. Mitchell ordered. Call her. Ask her to come in this afternoon. Tell her we would like to speak with her. Make it clear she is not in trouble. Ashford stood in silence. His mind was racing. This could not be happening. A janitor had solved his impossible problem, had solved it better than he could, and he had mocked her just hours before she did it. He looked at the blackboards again, at the beautiful, elegant solution, at the signature in Korean characters. For the first time in his career, Professor Richard Ashford felt something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize what it was. Shame. And underneath the shame, something even worse. The terrible realization that he had been completely, utterly wrong. Minseo was sleeping when her phone rang. She looked at the clock. 10:30 a.m. She had only been asleep for 3 hours. Her body felt heavy with exhaustion. The caller ID showed Riverside University. Her heart jumped. They knew. They had found out. She was going to be fired. Hello? Her voice was rough with sleep. Ms. Park? This is Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the mathematics department. I apologize for calling so early. It is okay, Minseo said, sitting up in bed. I am awake now. Ms. Park, we need to speak with you. Can you come to campus this afternoon? Around 2 p.m.? I want to assure you that you are not in any trouble. We just have some questions about some work that was done in the exam hall last night. Minseo was quiet for a moment. I understand. Will you come? Yes, I will be there. After the call ended, Minseo sat on her bed for a long time. She did not feel afraid anymore. Last night she had made her choice. Today she would face the consequences. She showered and dressed carefully. Not her cleaning uniform. She wore simple black pants and a white blouse. She pulled her hair back in a neat bun. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like a normal woman. Not a janitor. Not a genius. Just someone ordinary. But she was not ordinary. She had never been ordinary. And today everyone would know. Min SEO arrived at campus at 1:45 p.m. The mathematics building looked different in the afternoon. Sunlight filled the hallways. Students walked past carrying books. Professors talked in small groups. She found the department office on the 3rd floor. The secretary looked surprised to see her out of uniform. "I am Min Park. I have a meeting with Dr. Mitchell." "Oh yes. Please wait here. She will be with you in a moment." Min sat in a chair. Her hands were shaking again. She clasped them together in her lap. After 5 minutes, Dr. Mitchell emerged from her office. She was a small woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes. She smiled at Min. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Park. Please come in." Min followed her into the office. She expected to see Dr. Mitchell alone. Instead, the office was full of people. 6 professors sat in chairs or stood against the walls. Professor Ashford was there, standing in the corner with his arms crossed. He did not meet her eyes. "Please sit down," Dr. Mitchell said, gesturing to a chair in the center of the room. Min sat. She felt like she was on trial. Maybe she was. Dr. Mitchell sat behind her desk. "Miss Park, I will be direct. Last night, someone solved a complex mathematics problem that was written on the blackboard in exam hall 304. The security footage shows that you were that person. Is this correct?" "Yes," Min said. Her voice was steady. "Can you tell us why you did this?" Min looked at Ashford. He was staring at the floor. "Yesterday morning, Professor Ashford spoke to me in front of his students. He said that some people think and some people clean. He said people find their appropriate level. He used me as an example of someone who could never understand mathematics." The room was silent. Dr. Mitchell nodded slowly. "I have heard about this incident. Please continue." "I was angry," Min said simply, "and I was tired. For 15 years I have cleaned this building at night. For 15 years I have studied mathematics in secret. I have never told anyone because I thought no one would believe me. But yesterday Professor Ashford decided to humiliate me, so I decided to show him he was wrong. By solving his exam problem," Dr. Mitchell said. "Yes." Professor David Chen spoke up. "Ms. Park, your solution was remarkable. Not just correct, but elegant. Where did you learn that substitution technique?" "I read it in a paper about topological methods in differential equations. About 5 years ago. I thought it might apply to problems like this." "You read academic papers?" another professor asked with surprise. "Yes. I read everything I can find in the library. Textbooks, papers, whatever professors leave in their offices when I'm cleaning." Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. "Ms. Park, forgive me for asking, but what is your educational background?" Min took a deep breath. "I grew up in Seoul. I was good at mathematics as a child, very good. I won the Korean Mathematics Olympiad when I was 15. I started university at Seoul National University, mathematics major, but after 1 year my father died. I had to leave school to support my family. Eventually I came to America. I have been working as a janitor ever since." "But you continued studying mathematics on your own," Dr. Mitchell said. "Yes. I could not stop. It is part of who I am." Ashford finally spoke. His voice was quiet. "How do we know you did not copy the solution from somewhere? That you did not have help?" Min turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm. "You could give me another problem. Right now, I will solve it in front of you." The room exploded with whispered conversations. Dr. Mitchell raised her hand for silence. "Ms. Park, are you saying you are willing to demonstrate your abilities? To solve another advanced problem under observation?" "Yes," Min said. "That is the only way you will believe me." Ashford's face was pale, but his ego was wounded. "Fine. I have been working on a problem for months. A variation of a famous unsolved question. I will give her that. If she can solve it, I will believe her." "Richard," Dr. Mitchell said with warning in her voice, "this is not about your ego. It is about the truth," Ashford said. "She claims she can do advanced mathematics. Let her prove it." Dr. Mitchell looked at Min "You do not have to do this. Your solution last night was proof enough for me." "I want to do it," Min said. "I have been hiding for too long." 30 minutes later, Min stood in front of the blackboard in a conference room. Word had spread quickly. The room was crowded with professors and graduate students. Even some undergraduate students had found their way in. Jiwoo Kim was there, standing near the front with an encouraging smile. Ashford wrote a problem on the board. Mincio read it carefully. It was a difficult problem in partial differential equations. She could see immediately that it was related to fluid dynamics, the kind of problem that researchers might spend weeks or months working on. "You have 1 hour," Ashford said. "You may use the blackboard and chalk." "Nothing else," Mincio nodded. She picked up the chalk. Her hand was shaking slightly, but once she started writing, the shaking stopped. The room was completely silent. Everyone watched as she worked. She started by examining the structure of the equation. She wrote out several possible approaches, then crossed out 2 of them. She made notes about symmetries and conservation laws. Then she began the actual solution. Her chalk moved steadily across the board. She filled one section, then moved to another. Occasionally she would stop, close her eyes for a moment, then continue. Dr. Mitchell watched with fascination. She had been teaching mathematics for 25 years. She could recognize genius when she saw it. This woman was not just solving a problem. She was having a conversation with the mathematics itself, finding the natural path through the complexity. After 35 minutes, Mincio wrote a final line and stepped back. "I am finished," she said quietly. Ashford moved forward. His face was tense. He began reading her solution line by line. His finger traced each step. Several other professors joined him. They checked her work carefully. The room waited in silence. Mincio stood to the side, her hands clasped in front of her. She felt strangely calm. She had done her best. The mathematics spoke for itself. After 10 minutes, Ashford stepped back from the board. His face had lost all color. "It is correct," he said. His voice sounded hollow. "Every step is correct." A professor next to him said, "Not just correct. Look at what she did here. This approach, I have never seen this before. This could be applied to an entire class of similar problems." Another professor was shaking her head in amazement. "She did in 35 minutes what would take most researchers weeks." Dr. Mitchell walked to the board. She studied the solution carefully. Then she turned to look at Mincio. Her expression was serious. "Ms. Park, what you have shown us today is extraordinary. You have a gift." "A profound gift," she paused. "May I ask you a personal question?" "Yes," Mincio said. "Why did you hide this for so long?" "You could have reached out to the department, asked for help, applied to return to school." Mincio smiled sadly. "Who would have believed me? I am a 42-year-old janitor with no degree. No credentials, no proof. I thought if I told anyone they would laugh at me, or feel sorry for me, or think I was crazy. But you kept studying anyway," Dr. Mitchell said. "I could not stop. Mathematics is not just what I do. It is who I am." Jiwoo spoke up from the crowd. "Yesterday, Professor Ashford said that people find their appropriate level in life. That some people think and some people clean." Many students nodded, remembering. "I think Ms. Park just showed us that people are more than their jobs, more than what we see on the surface." Ashford stood very still. All eyes were on him. Finally he spoke. "Ms. Park, I owe you an apology. What I said yesterday was cruel and wrong. I judged you based on your job instead of your mind. I made assumptions about who you are and what you are capable of. I was completely wrong." His voice was stiff, but he forced himself to continue. "Your work is exceptional. Better than mine in many ways. You have humbled me, and I deserve to be humbled." Mincio looked at him. She could see that the apology cost him something, that it went against everything his ego wanted. "Thank you," she said simply. Dr. Mitchell cleared her throat. "Ms. Park, I would like to speak with you privately about your future. I think we have some things to discuss, but first there is something I want to show you." She led Mincio to a computer and pulled up a website. It was the mathematics department page. "These are our graduate students and researchers. I would like to add your name to this page. Not as a janitor, as a mathematician." Mincio felt tears coming to her eyes. "I do not have a degree. I am not really a mathematician." "A mathematician is someone who does mathematics," Dr. Mitchell said firmly. "You are more of a mathematician than many people with degrees. We can work on the credentials later, but first I need to know something. What do you want?" Mincio looked around the room, at the blackboard covered with her work, at the professors and students who were looking at her with respect, at Jiwoo, who was smiling, even at Ashford, who was watching her with something that might have been respect mixed with shame. "I want to do mathematics," Mincio said. "I want to study, to learn, to contribute. I do not want to hide anymore." "Then that is what you will do," Dr. Mitchell said. The room erupted in applause. Minseo stood there, overwhelmed. This morning she had been a janitor with a secret. Now she was standing in front of the mathematics department, being recognized for who she truly was. It felt like waking up from a long dream. Or maybe like finally falling asleep after being awake for 15 years. She was not sure which. But she knew that her life had just changed forever. And this time the change was her choice. The news spread like wildfire. By evening, everyone on campus was talking about the janitor who solved the impossible equation. By the next morning, the story had reached the local newspapers. By the end of the week, it had gone national. Janitor genius woman solves math problem that stumped students. Hidden brilliance night worker proves professor wrong. From mop to mathematics, the remarkable story of Minseo Park. Minseo's phone rang constantly. Reporters wanted interviews. Television shows wanted her to appear. Science magazines wanted to write feature stories. It was overwhelming. She sat in Dr. Mitchell's office looking at the pile of messages and requests. "I do not know how to handle this," Minseo admitted. "I just wanted to solve a math problem. Now everyone wants to talk to me." Dr. Mitchell smiled sympathetically. "Your story resonates with people. It reminds them that talent can be found anywhere, that it is wrong to judge people by their job or circumstances. But I feel like a circus act," Minseo said. "The janitor who can do math, like I am something strange to stare at. I understand, but you can use this attention for good. You can inspire people, show them that it is never too late to pursue their dreams." Minseo was not sure she wanted to inspire people. She just wanted to do mathematics in peace. But she understood that her life would never be that simple again. The mathematics community had its own response to her story. Within days, Dr. Mitchell had sent Minseo's notebooks to several leading mathematicians across the country. She wanted independent verification that Minseo's work was legitimate and significant. The responses came back quickly. All were amazed. A professor from MIT wrote, "The work in these notebooks is extraordinary. Some of these proofs are more elegant than the standard published versions. The original problems show deep mathematical intuition. Ms. Park is clearly self-taught, but her understanding is graduate level or beyond in several areas." A researcher from Princeton commented, "I am particularly impressed by her work on topological methods. She has independently discovered several techniques that only became standard in the field within the past decade. In some cases, her approach is simpler than what we teach." A Fields Medal winner wrote simply, "This woman is a mathematician. The lack of formal credentials is irrelevant. She should be given every opportunity to develop her gifts." Dr. Mitchell showed these letters to Minseo. "Do you see? You are not a curiosity. You are the real thing. The mathematical community recognizes your talent." But not everyone was supportive. Some academics questioned whether Minseo's work was truly original. They suggested she must have memorized solutions from textbooks. Others argued that one impressive solution did not prove sustained ability. Professor Ashford faced his own reckoning. Video of his treatment of Minseo had been recorded by several students. Parts of it appeared online. The internet was not kind to him. "Arrogant professor gets humbled by janitor he mocked." When genius cleans your classroom, professor's brutal lesson. The university received hundreds of complaints. Parents said they did not want their children taught by someone so cruel. Alumni threatened to stop donations. The mathematics department was in crisis. Dr. Mitchell called Ashford into her office. "Richard, the board has made a decision. You will take a 6-month sabbatical effective immediately. Paid leave, but you will not teach any classes or supervise any students during this time." Ashford sat in silence. His career, his reputation, everything he had built over 30 years was damaged. And he had done it to himself with his own cruelty. "I understand," he said quietly. "I hope you use this time to reflect," Dr. Mitchell said. Her voice was not unkind. "You are a brilliant mathematician, Richard. But brilliance without kindness is incomplete. Mathematics is not a weapon to hurt people. It is a language we use to understand truth." Ashford left campus that afternoon. As he walked through the hall, students whispered and stared. He felt their judgment. He deserved it. Meanwhile, Minseo faced a different kind of challenge. Universities across the country were reaching out with offers. Stanford offered her a full scholarship for a PhD program. MIT offered a research position. Harvard wanted her to join as a special graduate student with full funding. Princeton offered mentorship with their top mathematicians. How do I choose? Mincio asked Dr. Mitchell. They were sitting in the office looking at the letters spread across the desk. What do you want? Dr. Mitchell asked. I want to learn. I want to grow as a mathematician. But I also, Mincio hesitated. I'm 42 years old. I have been away from formal education for over 20 years. I am scared. Scared of what? Of failing. Of not being good enough. Of being a spectacle instead of a real mathematician. Right now, people are excited about my story. But what if I cannot keep up with real academics? What if I was just lucky with those two problems? Dr. Mitchell leaned back in her chair. Mincio, do you know what imposter syndrome is? Yes, when you feel like you do not deserve your success. Like you are a fraud. Almost every successful person experiences it at some point. But in your case, it is particularly unfounded. You have taught yourself more mathematics than most PhD students learn in their programs. You have solved problems that professional mathematicians struggle with. Your work is not luck. It is the result of 15 years of dedicated study. But those 15 years were alone, Mincio said. I never had to explain my thinking. Never had to defend my work. Never had to collaborate or teach. What if I cannot do those things? Dr. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you something. Riverside University wants to offer you something different, not a traditional program, something designed specifically for you. She pulled out a new letter. We would like to create a special researcher position. You would have full access to our facilities, library, and faculty. You could audit any classes you want, work on any problems that interest you. We would pay you a researcher's salary, and you could take as much or as little time as you need to complete formal coursework for a degree. Mincio read the letter carefully. Why would you do this? Because you belong here. You have been part of this community for 15 years, even if we did not recognize it, and because I believe you can contribute something valuable, not just your mathematical work, but your perspective, your story. Mincio felt tears in her eyes. This is very generous. There is one condition, Dr. Mitchell said. We would like you to be available to mentor students, particularly students from non-traditional backgrounds, those who feel like they do not belong. You could show them that mathematics is for everyone. Mincio thought about this, about the years she had spent invisible, about all the young people who might be hiding their talents because they did not fit the expected image of who a mathematician should be. I would like that, she said. Over the next weeks, the arrangements were made. Mincio gave notice at her cleaning job. Her supervisor was kind about it. I always knew you were special, Linda said. The way you looked at those blackboards. I should have asked you about it. I am sorry I never did. You gave me a job when I needed it, Mincio said. You treated me with respect. That is enough. A major mathematics journal contacted Mincio. They wanted to publish a paper based on the work in her notebooks. With help from Dr. Mitchell and other professors, Mincio wrote her first academic paper. It was about new methods for solving certain classes of differential equations. The paper was titled, Topological Approaches to Classical Problems, Insights from Independent Study. In the author bio, it listed her simply as Mincio Park Independent Researcher, Riverside University. When the paper was published 2 months later, it created another wave of attention. The mathematics community was impressed. This was not just a janitor who could solve one problem. This was a serious mathematician with original insights. Mincio found herself invited to give a talk at a mathematics conference. She was terrified. She had never spoken publicly about mathematics before. She had never even been to an academic conference. Dr. Mitchell helped her prepare. Jiwoo, who had become a friend, gave her advice about presentations. Other professors offered support and encouragement. The day of the talk arrived. Mincio stood backstage at the conference center, her heart pounding. The room was full. Over 300 mathematicians had come to hear her speak. She walked onto the stage. The applause was loud and long. She stood at the podium, looking at all the faces. These were her people. These were mathematicians. And now, finally, she was one of them. Thank you for coming, she began. Her voice was shaky at first, but grew stronger. My name is Mincio Park. Until recently, I worked as a janitor. Today, I want to talk to you about mathematics. She spoke for 45 minutes. About her journey. About the problems she had solved. About the beauty she had found in equations during long, lonely nights. about what it means to love mathematics even when the world tells you that love is not for people like you. The audience listened in complete silence. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Some had tears in their eyes. During the question period, a young woman raised her hand. "Ms. Park, I am a first-generation college student. I am the first in my family to study science. Sometimes I feel like I do not belong here, like mathematics is not for people like me. What would you say to someone like me?" Mincio looked at the young woman. She saw herself 20 years ago, full of doubt and fear and hope. "I would say that mathematics does not care where you came from," Mincio said. "It does not care about your job, your age, your background, or your credentials. Mathematics only cares about truth. If you love truth, if you love beauty, if you love understanding how the universe works, then mathematics is for you. It has always been for you. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." The young woman nodded, wiping her eyes. After the talk, people lined up to meet Mincio. Professors wanted to discuss her work. Graduate students wanted advice. Other non-traditional students wanted to share their own stories. One older man waited until the end. When he approached Mincio, she recognized him immediately. It was Professor Ashford. "Hello, Ms. Park," he said quietly. "I wanted to hear your talk. I hope you do not mind." "I do not mind," Mincio said. "Your presentation was excellent. Your work is truly impressive." He paused. "I have been on sabbatical for 3 months now. I have had time to think. About my career. About how I have treated people. About what kind of mathematician I want to be." "And what did you decide?" Mincio asked. "That I have been wrong about many things. I believed that intelligence was a competition. That making others feel small made me feel big. I believed that credentials and pedigree mattered more than ability. You have shown me how wrong I was." He looked directly at her. "I cannot undo what I said to you. I cannot take back the cruelty. But I can learn from it. I can be better. I wanted you to know that you have changed me. For the better." Mincio studied his face. She saw genuine regret there. Genuine humility. "Thank you for telling me this," she said. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Even professors," Ashford smiled slightly. "Especially professors," they shook hands. It was not friendship exactly, but it was peace. That night, Mincio returned to her hotel room. She sat by the window looking at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with congratulations messages. Her email was full of new opportunities. Her life had transformed completely in just a few months, but the thing that made her happiest was simple. Tomorrow morning she would wake up and work on mathematics, not in secret, not in stolen moments, but openly as herself, with the support of a community that recognized her worth. She had spent 15 years in the shadows, but now she was stepping into the light, and the light, she discovered, was exactly where she belonged. 6 months had passed since that night when Mincio picked up chalk and changed her life forever. Now, on a crisp autumn afternoon, she sat in her own office in the mathematics building. Her name was on the door, Dr. Mincio Park Research Fellow. She still had to remind herself that this was real. The office had a desk, bookshelves filled with mathematics books, a comfortable chair, and a large blackboard on one wall. The blackboard was covered with equations she was working on, a new problem in topological dynamics that had captured her interest. Through the window, she could see students walking across campus. Some of them waved when they saw her. She had become something of a celebrity on campus, though she did not particularly like the attention. She preferred to be known for her work, not her story. But she understood that her story mattered to people, especially to those who felt invisible or overlooked. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Jiwoo Kim entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He had graduated last spring and was now a graduate student in the mathematics department. He and Mincio had become close friends. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her a cup. "You have been in here since 7 a.m., Mincio smiled. "Thank you. I lost track of time." "How is the paper coming?" Jiwoo asked, looking at her blackboard. "Slowly, but I think I am close to something interesting." She had been working on extending her previous work to more complex systems. If successful, it could have applications in physics and engineering. "Dr. Mitchell wants to remind you about your lecture this afternoon," Jiwoo said. "You are giving a talk to the undergraduate mathematics club," Mincio groaned. "I forgot." "What time?" 3 o'clock. "You have 2 hours. Public speaking still made Min Seo nervous even after several conferences and talks, but it was part of her new role, part of giving back to the community that had embraced her. At 3 o'clock, Min Seo entered the lecture hall. About 50 students were waiting, including several she recognized from calculus classes. They applauded when she walked in. She still was not used to that. "Good afternoon," she began. "Thank you all for coming. Today I want to talk about something that might seem unusual for a mathematics lecture. I want to talk about finding beauty in unexpected places." She clicked to her first slide. It showed a simple differential equation. When most people look at this equation, they see symbols. Maybe they see difficulty. Maybe they see homework. But I want to show you what I see. I see a story. I see movement. I see the universe expressing itself in the language of mathematics. For the next hour, Min Seo talked about the beauty of mathematics. Not just the technical details, but the art of it, the creativity required to solve problems, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of understanding something deep and true about how reality works. The students listened with fascination. This was not like their regular classes. This was someone sharing a love affair with mathematics. During the question period, a young woman raised her hand. "Ms. Park, Dr. Park, how did you stay motivated during all those years when you were studying alone, when no one knew what you were doing?" Min Seo thought about this carefully. "The mathematics itself was my motivation. I did not study because I wanted recognition or a career. I studied because I could not help myself. Because every time I solved a problem, I found 3 more problems that fascinated me, because the beauty of mathematical truth was its own reward." She paused. "But I will be honest. There were hard days, days when I wondered if I was wasting my time, days when I felt very alone. What kept me going was remembering why I fell in love with mathematics in the first place, not because of grades or competition or career, but because it made me see the world differently. It gave me a way to touch infinity." Another student asked, "Do you ever regret the years you spent as a janitor? Do you feel like you wasted time?" "No," Min Seo said firmly. "I do not regret those years. They taught me patience. They taught me humility. They taught me that meaningful work can happen anywhere, not just in prestigious universities or fancy offices. Some of my best thinking happened late at night in empty classrooms with just a blackboard and chalk and silence." She smiled. "Also, I learned that janitors work very hard. I have more respect for people who clean buildings than I did before. All honest work has dignity." After the lecture, students lined up to talk with her. Some had questions about mathematics. Others wanted to share their own struggles with feeling like they did not belong. Min Seo listened to each one patiently. One young man told her, "I am the first person in my family to go to college. Sometimes I feel so far behind everyone else, like I am not smart enough to be here." "Let me tell you a secret," Min Seo said. "Most people feel that way sometimes, even the people who look confident and prepared. The difference between success and failure is not whether you feel doubt. It is whether you let doubt stop you." As the sun began to set, Min Seo finally returned to her office. She was tired but happy. This was her life now. Research in the morning, teaching and mentoring in the afternoon, collaboration with colleagues who respected her work. It was everything she had dreamed of during those long, lonely nights. She was gathering her things to go home when her phone rang. It was Dr. Mitchell. "Min Seo, do you have a moment? Something interesting has happened." Min Seo walked to Dr. Mitchell's office. The dean was smiling broadly. "I just received a call from the National Science Foundation. They want to fund your research. A 3-year grant. It is a significant amount of money." Min Seo sat down heavily. "For my research?" "Yes, your work on topological methods has attracted attention. They believe it has important applications. This grant will allow you to work full-time on research. You can also hire a graduate student assistant if you want." Min Seo felt overwhelmed. 6 months ago, she had been cleaning floors. Now the federal government wanted to fund her mathematical research. "I do not know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes." Dr. Mitchell laughed. "This is just the beginning, Min Seo. Your career is launching. Who knows where it will take you?" That evening, Min Seo decided to take a walk around campus before going home. The mathematics building was mostly empty. Night had fallen. The hallways were quiet. She found herself walking toward exam hall 304, the room where everything had changed. She pushed open the door and turned on the lights. The room looked exactly the same. Rows of desks, The blackboard at the front. Everything familiar. But Minseo saw it differently now. This was not the room where she had been humiliated. This was the room where she had found her courage. She walked to the front and picked up a piece of chalk. Just holding it made her smile. Such a simple tool. But in the right hands, it could reveal truth. It could solve problems. It could change lives. Minseo was about to leave when she heard a sound. Someone was cleaning in the hallway. She looked out and saw an older man pushing a cleaning cart. He was the night janitor now, the person who had taken her job when she left. "Hello?" she called out. "Working late?" The man looked up, startled. He was probably 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. "Yes, ma'am." "Just finishing up. What is your name?" Minseo asked. "Carlos," he said. "Carlos Mendez. Nice to meet you, Carlos." "I am Minseo." "I know who you are," Carlos said shyly. "Everyone knows your story. The janitor who became a mathematician." Minseo noticed that Carlos kept glancing at the blackboard in the exam hall. There were equations there from today's class. Probability theory. "Do you like mathematics, Carlos?" she asked gently. He looked embarrassed. I used to like it. When I was young in Mexico, I was good at numbers. But I only finished 6th grade. I had to work to help my family. I never had a chance to study more." "But you still like it?" Minseo asked. "Sometimes I look at the boards. Try to understand. But it is too advanced for me." He laughed sadly. Just a foolish old man trying to understand what he never learned properly. Minseo felt her heart ache. She saw herself in Carlos. Someone with curiosity and ability but no opportunity. Someone who loved mathematics but was told it was not for people like them. "Would you like to understand?" she asked. Carlos looked surprised. "Understand what?" "The mathematics. Would you like me to teach you?" "You would do that?" Carlos said, his eyes wide. "But I am just a janitor." "So was I," Minseo said firmly. "And I learned that mathematics does not care about job titles. It only cares about minds that are curious and willing to think." She gestured to the blackboard. "What do you see here?" Carlos looked at the probability equations. "I see numbers and symbols. I know some of it is about chances, like rolling dice or drawing cards. But the rest..." He shook his head. "Let me show you," Minseo said. She picked up chalk and began to explain. She started simple with basic probability concepts. Carlos listened carefully, asking questions. He was smart. He understood quickly once things were explained clearly. They worked together for 30 minutes. Minseo teaching, Carlos learning. It reminded her of teaching herself late at night, alone in these same rooms. But this was better. This was sharing the gift that had been given to her. "You are good at this," Minseo told Carlos. "You have a mathematical mind, really?" Carlos looked pleased and surprised. "Really? If you want, we could do this regularly. I could teach you. Start with basics and work up. We could meet once a week. Would you be interested?" Carlos looked like he might cry. "You would do that for me?" "But why?" "Because someone did it for me," Minseo said. "Dr. Mitchell and others here gave me a chance when I had no credentials, no degree, no proof except my work. Now I want to pass that kindness forward," she smiled. "Also because mathematics is too beautiful to keep to ourselves. It should be shared with everyone who wants to learn, regardless of age, job, or background." "Then yes," Carlos said firmly. "I would like to learn very much." They made arrangements to meet every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Minseo would teach Carlos mathematics. Not for credit or degrees, just for the love of learning. Just for the joy of understanding. As Minseo walked home that night, she thought about the path that had brought her here. From a gold medal winner in Seoul to a janitor in America, to a researcher with her own office and government funding. It had been a long journey, sometimes painful, often lonely, but she would not change it. Every step had been necessary. Every year of struggle had taught her something valuable. About mathematics, yes, but more importantly about life, about dignity, about the worth of every human mind. She thought about tomorrow. She would work on her research in the morning, meet with graduate students in the afternoon, prepare for next week's conference, and on Tuesday evening she would teach Carlos about probability theory. This was her life now. Not hiding in shadows, not working in silence, but living openly as who she truly was. A mathematician, a teacher, a mentor, a person who had learned that equations speak truth regardless of who writes them. She looked up at the night sky. Stars were beginning to appear. She remembered learning as a child that stars follow mathematical laws. Their movements could be predicted by equations. Their light followed rules that humans had discovered and written down. The universe spoke in mathematics. And Minseo Park, once invisible, once dismissed, once told she had found her appropriate level, now spoke that language fluently. She spoke it with her research. She spoke it with her teaching. She spoke it with every problem she solved and every student she encouraged. In the language of mathematics, every voice mattered. Every mind could discover truth. Sometimes it took just one equation to change everything, one moment of courage to step out of shadow and into light. Minseo smiled as she walked home. Tomorrow she would write more equations. Tomorrow she would solve more problems. Tomorrow she would help someone else discover the beauty she had found. But tonight she was simply grateful. Grateful for the journey. Grateful for the gift of mathematics. Grateful for the chance to finally be herself. The janitor had become a mathematician, but more importantly, the mathematician had learned that she had always been one. The job title had never mattered. Only the truth had mattered. Only the mathematics had mattered. Only the courage to pick up chalk and write her name for the world to see. And in doing so, she had shown that brilliance can be found anywhere. In corner offices and on night shifts. In prestigious universities and in quiet moments alone with a blackboard. In young prodigies and in those who find their path later in life. Mathematics belonged to everyone who sought it. Truth belonged to everyone who pursued it. Beauty belonged to everyone who opened their eyes to see it. This was the equation that mattered most. The one that Minseo Park had solved and would spend the rest of her life teaching to others who had been told they did not belong. Everyone belongs in mathematics. Everyone has something to contribute. Every mind matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. This was the truth that changed everything, and it always would be.